Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 492 to 494 for the 30th of June to 2nd of July for the past 3 days. So let's start off with the Southern Front. Let's start off with Wagner. Wagner private military contractors in their official Telegram channels has officially announced that they will be not participate in the special military operation. That means they are no longer be operating as part of the Russian forces within Ukraine. So, and they are moving to Belarus, which means that they will be suspending their recruitment operations in Russia for at least 1 month. So they say that they'll suspend the work of regional centers for recruitment to Wagner for the period of 1 month. So this actually is a confirmation of all this intrigue and politics between Wagner and the Russian Ministry of Defense. And there is so the Southern Front, as usual, is mainly at Dachi, at the Antonovskiy Bridge. So what we had was that the Ukrainian forces on the 30th of June actually sent reinforcement to Dachi. So the Ukrainian forces sent reinforcement towards Dachi, and there is also amphibious operations reported along this island, which was not sure exactly where, but it was stopped by the Russian forces, probably through artillery and whatnot. And on the 30th of June, the Russian forces fired a ISKANDAR missile, which is a very massive big missile on the Ukrainian positions under the bridge. Basically they basically destroy the bridge, and and Iskandar is such a big warhead that it destroyed the bridgehead over here, and the video was actually being posted on the social media to show the explosion, and this is reported by Ryba as well, the pro-Russian source, saying that the Iskandar has basically destroyed the remain of the bridge where the Ukrainian forces are hiding. And then however, the Russians are able to progress through the minefields that was remotely deployed by the Ukrainians on the approach towards the bridge, and reportedly the Russians are able to capture all the coastal area. However, and then by the 2nd of July, which is yesterday, the destruction of the Ukrainian units landed on the island was completed, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And this is not confirmed by the pro-Ukrainian side or the Ukrainian side, but it looks like the chapter of the Ukrainian forces at Dachi has currently closed. Pro-Russian sources continue to report that Ryba says that the Ukrainian forces is likely to continue to try to land on the island. So this is definitely not end of the story for the Ukrainian side, but they will likely to continue, just that this episode at Dachi has kind of ended. And I would say that it's yet another of these Ukrainian operations that is absolutely meaningless, and it ends up doing nothing. You don't do an amphibious operation just to hold a small ground and get bombarded. Amphibious operations is meant to build a bridgehead, secure immediate ground, and immediately continue to land force to push out of the bridgehead and secure a buffer zone, so that even more forces can be landed to continue a massive offensive into the enemy territory. Whatever this is nonsense. So this is what the Ukrainians did, and unfortunately it turns out to be a kind of pointless. Both sides have soldiers died because the Russians actually pushed through the minefield, and many people died in the process, because the Ukrainians also fire at the Russian side with artillery, drones, and whatnot. So yeah, the entire episode at the Antonovskiy Bridge is just kind of as broken as the bridge. So moving on from the Southern Front at Kherson, we move into the Zaporizhzhia line, or the Zaporizhzhia Front. At the Zaporizhzhia Front in the Kayamsky sector, there is fighting reported at Patikaki. The information is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry and also by Ryba, where the Ukrainian forces attack and try to occupy Petikaki. So what happens is that Petikaki, because it's so close to the front line, it's basically a gray zone. Although in our mapping we map it as under Ukrainian control, the Ukrainian forces actually that is not present at Petikaki, because you can't literally live there because it's a place where it's utterly shot through, utterly destroyed, and the Ukrainian forces advanced into Petikaki, and then they got immediately engaged by the Russian forces that is outside of Petikaki. So battle rages over at this town. So far it doesn't really achieve anything as well. And moving into the Orikhiv sector, at the Orikhiv sector we have a Ukrainian Sukhoi 25 shot down over Novo Andreevka, which is over here. And over at the south of Novodanilivka, the Ukrainian forces continue their attack towards Robotine. This attack continues. Well, the fighting was reported from the 30th of June, starting from a recon all the way to an offensive. So according to Raiba, they reported that an assault group of the 65th Mechanized Brigade launched an attack north of Robotino, which is Robotine. However, they did not break through. So said that was the 1st of July. On the 2nd of July, they tried again. This is the same from the same unit. They attacked again. This time now they managed to push the Russian backwards 300 meters. And however, the 31st Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian forces managed to hold back the advance, and then they counter-attack and managed to recapture 150 kilometers. So exactly where this is rather unclear, but the Ukrainians did try to attack, and then the Russians counter-attack back. The fighting is still ongoing at Robotine. However, on this eastern part, the Ukrainian forces did manage to capture more grounds. This happens on the 30th of June. According to Surya maps, the Ukrainian forces managed to capture this area here. So managed to close down the Russian entrenched position northeast of Robotine. So there is a heavy entrenchment over here. So the Ukrainian forces did not manage to push to the entrenchment. They didn't capture it, but they managed to push closer. And there is also reports of attempted recon that was spotted and destroyed near Novodanilivka, with the Ukrainian forces still very active over at this sector over here, which, if you ask me, I also have no idea why are they doing this, because if you look at the entrenchment south of it, and they haven't even reached the first proper line of defense. Yeah, they need to be a bit more creative about it. That's all I can say. Over at the Orikhiv sector also, there was fighting reported at Luhivsky. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, they say that they hit the 106th Territorial Defense Brigade. However, this, just take it with a pinch of salt. Maybe it's just an artillery strike, because the Russian Defense Ministry lately like to use this terminology called heat, which they do not mention what kind of heat is it. Is it an artillery, airstrike, or is it an infantry attack? So you can get hit by a lot of things. Like you can get hit by a pillow as well. So maybe the units here got hit by the pillow, and they feel very comfortable. Anyway, moving on from the Orikhiv sector, we have nothing over at Huaypole sector, which, like which I mentioned before, this seems like the easiest route to actually go through, because it looks like the thinnest line of defense, but no, they choose to attack the thickest line of defense for whatever reason. And over at the Velika Novosibirsk sector, the Ukrainian forces continue to try to press on their success over at this region, as they captured Rivnopil, Novodarivka, Levadne, and Makarivka, and also they managed to have some progress over at the western part of Makarivka, as they push the Russian forces south of the river. This is all happened previously. So the Ukrainian forces continue to press on their advantage. Fighting is continue to be reported near Rivnopil, Novodarivka, and towards Pridyotne, and there's fighting reported at Makarivka and towards Staromayoske, and this is all happening. But to summarize, not much progress. The Russian forces managed to hold a position over the past 3 days. All these reports coming from different sources. Russian Defense Ministry reported an attack on Ukrainian forces at Levadne, and the next day, the 1st of July, the Ukrainian forces launched an attack towards Priyotny. However, did not seem to work out. There is fighting reported near Novodarivka. So far, it's just probing attacks that was been thwarted on the 1st of July. At Rivnopil, 2nd of July, there is another probing over at this region here. And in today's report by one of the, which group is this? Let me check. Oh, I have to check. Oh, I have to open and see. Okay, so by the Vostok group of forces, they reported that their sniper units managed to take out some of these Ukrainian reconnaissance groups at the Rivnopil region. So the Ukrainian forces is trying to probe the line, but it's going to be pretty difficult because that this is a river system here. There's a river here, so the Russian forces have a very comfortable position to defend, plus the forest lines and everything. So this is a bit hard for the Ukrainians at the moment. They're probing, and there's also an attempted assault between Rivnopil and Makarivka. The advance of the units was spotted by the Vostok group of forces, and they were neutralized. However, on the 1st of July, there was attack on Staromayorsky. This attack also did not work out. This attack is probably attacking from the west towards Staromayorsky. There was also attack reported the day before on the 30th of June. They got hit by airstrikes and artillery and Russian units. So pretty disastrous, I would say. And over on the 1st of July, the Russian Defense Ministry reported they repelled 2 attacks, and then forward units also thwarted some additional reconnaissance. So a lot of things happening with the Ukrainians trying to capture Staromayorsky. As I mentioned, this is a strategically important town. The Russians definitely is not going to let go. So this is ongoing over at the Velika Novosilka sector. And moving on into the Donetsk Front. So this is Donetsk Front. So Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, we have some fighting reported around the Voleda region. Fighting is reported at Mikhailsk, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And also on the 3rd of July, in the latest report from the Vostok group of forces, the Ukrainians are attacked with a platoon strength. Platoon is, for those that are not sure, is around, I would say, 30 to 40 soldiers. Could be lesser than that. So the attack, it could be also 4 vehicles or 3 vehicles, depending on what kind of platoon you're talking about. So they attack Mikhailsk. This is a bit surprising because we haven't seen any fighting at the Voleda region for some time. So maybe they are trying to surprise the Russian units. And this fighting is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. So they definitely had some was defended successfully against the Ukrainian attack. Fighting is reported near Stepnoye. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, they say Stepnoye. I cannot find any other place. So it could be an attack, or it could be a probing towards this position. So far, it did not work out. And then at Marinka, fighting is reported across all 3 days. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry has been very consistently saying that the Russians are attacking from the 30th of June to the 1st of July to the 2nd of July. Basically, it's a copy and paste of their reports every day. They don't really talk much about it. The Russians are continuing to be attacking within Marinka. The Russian Defense Ministry reported fighting at Marinka. So yeah, need to delete this. So fighting at Marinka on the 2nd of July. This reported by the Yoke group of forces. And that's all for the Marinka. Moving on to the Avdiivka Front. At the Avdiivka Front, so Avdiivka is here. Avdiivka Front on the north of Donetsk city. The Ukrainians continue their offensive over at this region here. So to a general picture, you will be the Ukrainians attacked Novokalinovo from Stepove towards Krasnohorivka, towards Vesely, towards Kayamka, towards Krotabauka. They attacked Vodian, they attacked Pervomaisky. So it's basically across the board. However, the Ukrainian side, the pro-Ukrainian side claims that the Russians are actually attacking in this area here. So there is some kind of a parallel universe where the Ukrainians are actually making progress, but yet they say the Russians are attacking over on the eastern part of Avdiivka. So going through the sources over at Pervomaisky, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported on the 30th of June that the Russians attacked in Pervomaisky. Interestingly, is that they did not mention this on the 1st or 2nd of July. So which means this is probably real, that the Russians did launch an attack within Pervomaisky, probably some kind of counter attack. And but on the 1st of July and 2nd of July, the Russian Defense Ministry said that it is the Ukrainians that is attacking Pervomaisky. So they are continuing to be on the offensive, the Ukrainians. There is fighting reported at Vodian on the 1st and the 2nd of July at Vodian. So this area and this, you can see that it is a reversal of what the Russians has been doing for the past half a year. Interestingly, the Russian Defense Ministry also reported fighting near Zheveny on the 30th of June and on the 2nd of July. I still trying to think how they are able to fight at Zheveny and Vodian at the same time, and I have looked at the Russian Defense Ministry's mapping. As a result, it was not so clear. And what's worse is suddenly there is a report of fighting at Lastokishny. So which is even worse, which is even further away. So I still not fully sure how they actually write their report. Or it could be a case where the Ukrainians are moving from Latoshkini and they kind of just artillery strike them, that kind of thing. I wonder if that's the case. So it wasn't clear, but that's the report. So I just tell you that the Russian Defense Ministry reported it that way. Over at the eastern part of Avdiivka, this is also pretty confusing. There is over at Krotabauka, the Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, reported that the Russians continue to be attacking. Deep State UA, this pro-Ukrainian source, is highly credible. So when they say that the Russians are attacking, there's a very high chance they are indeed attacking. Of course, they are not 100% trustable per se, but they are just very credible, just like Ryba. And then they say that the enemy continued to be attacking, wrong color here, on the 1st of July. So 30th of June and 1st of July, the Russians continue to be attacking within this sector here. And the way how they list it is that they say the Russians are attacking across from Krasnohorivka all the way to Krotabauka. This entire line, the Russians are on the offensive. This is how they basically how they wrote the situation over here. And most of the fighting also comes around probably Kayamka sector. The Russian Defense Ministry said that they actually defended against the Ukrainians at Kayamka. So this is actually a contradiction to what the Deep State UA is saying. And over at the Kayamka, they say that the Russians are still attacking. I need to refresh the page. So the Deep State UA reported that the Russian forces is attacking on the 1st of July and then on the 2nd of July as well. So they continue to insist that the Russians are the one attacking within the eastern part of Avdiivka. And however, the Russian Defense Ministry also reported that Vesely, which is actually here, is attacked by the Ukrainian forces, which is something that has been happening over the past week or so, where the Ukrainians actually managed to capture quite a number of rounds, which is why I say that this parallel universe is kind of weird, because it clearly, by the changes of the mapping, the Ukrainians are attacking, but somehow Deep State UA continue to say that the Russians are the one attacking. So this is the other report, at Krasnohorivka to Krotabauka line. So this is 30th of June. And however, even with this, the Ukrainians actually has made progress. Previously, the Russian lines is actually here. This is the Russian line, all the way here. The Ukrainians have managed to push all the way here with their offensive, pushing all the way to the edge of Krasnohorivka. This is actually a major progress for the Ukrainians. to push the Russians away from Stepove, where the Russians are trying very hard to capture but did not manage to work out. So information according to the Russian Defense Ministry was that the fighting on the 30th of June is at Pestrovskoye. However, Surya maps on the 30th of June already reported that the Ukrainians managed to recover the west of Krasnohorivka. So the Russian lines is currently now here. All the way from here, they have been pushed back by the Ukrainian forces. So, which is why I say that I have my doubts sometimes a bit like, you cannot trust Deep State UA entirely, because it just don't make sense. Sometimes the things that they say that the Russians are on the offensive, but the Ukrainians are actually gaining ground, and I feel that that is just disingenuous from the Deep State UA side, because they build their reputation on being very accurate and objective, despite being pro-Ukraine, which is all right to be pro-Ukraine. But the thing is, the Ukrainians are gaining ground, and at the same time they say that the Russians are attacking. It's just don't make sense. Fighting is also reported near Novo-Kalinove, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, on the 30th of June. And on the 2nd of July, there is also fighting reported over here at Novo-Bakhmutivka. So the Ukrainian offensive is definitely still ongoing. As you can see that the 2nd of July, the Ukrainian Avdiivka offensive is still ongoing. So so don't think that the Ukrainians have stopped. And for those also that are pro-Russian, you may think that the Ukrainians are throwing soldiers, wasting lives and in their offensive and whatnot. But this is basically what the pro-Ukrainians say about the Russians when the Russians are attacking. So then some of the pro-Russians say that the Ukrainians are capturing, wasting so many soldiers for just 200 meters, 300 meters, 100 meters of land. But that's also what exactly the Russians are doing when they are doing the offensive. It's creeping very slow advance, and the Ukrainians are saying exactly what the pro-Russians are saying right now. So no, you two are the same. Pro-Russian, pro-Ukraine, you two are the same. So no, don't cope so much. If it's progressing, then they are winning. So it doesn't matter how many soldiers they die. If they lose all the soldiers, they will start to lose the war, and then you will see the reversal in the change of the front line. So yeah, if the strategy is to have 10 soldiers died for every one enemy soldier die, and that's the strategy, and they continue to push the enemy back, then it's successful. That's the strategy. So don't blame the method, blame the game. Okay. So and also it's a good time to tell you to press the subscribe button. You have to press the subscribe button, because as if all of you that are not subscribed press the subscribe button right now, this channel will gain 10,000 subs straight away. So help me grow the channel, because subscribers means more reach. Yeah, so it's not for nothing, because if you don't subscribe, then you may not see this video being recommended. And yeah, and that's just how it is. So do help me press the subscribe button and help to grow the channel. And there's nothing over at the New York front. Moving into the Bakhmut front. At the Bakhmut front, the Ukrainian offensive is also still ongoing, and they are also making progress over at this region. There is fighting reported at Mayos over on the 1st of July. The fighting on the 30th of June, which is near Mayos, is reportedly east of Friendship, which is Druzhba. So the east of Druzhba is actually Ukrainians attacking this direction, which is also Mayos. So yeah, a lot of creative writing over here, but Ukrainians did not really make progress over this area. The progress actually comes over at Kodyumivka. So there's an attempted assault towards Kodyumivka on the 1st of July. It was spotted by the Russian forces, and they sent artillery their way. However, on the 30th of June, there was also fighting reported in this region here. So the fighting is definitely still ongoing around this region here. The progress was done previously. We have already mentioned. The main progress is actually over this area. The Ukrainian forces managed to push closer and closer towards Klishchievka. And fighting is reported over here by Surya maps on the 30th of June, where they made the progress. And then they made further progress on the 2nd of July, according to Surya maps and the Deep State UA. So they are continue to make progress over at this area here, which means the Russians are the lines are getting a bit weaker over at this region because the Ukrainians have been putting so much pressure on Klishchiivka. They have been dumping a lot of soldiers, tanks, and armor this direction, and the Russian units that is holding this area it's looking like they are struggling to hold back the Ukrainian assault over at the Klishchiivka region. Fighting over at Klishchiivka on the 30th of June is also reported by Driver. So not a lot of reporting, but a lot of progress on the Ukrainian side. This is a southern flank of the Bakhmut Front. And over at Bakhmut itself, there is reports of fighting at Bakhmut, which the Russian Defense Ministry called Artyomov on the 1st and the 2nd of July. They did not mention much about this. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported fighting at Krumove on the 30th of June. Not sure what is the context. They say that the Russians attacked at Krumove. Not sure the context. Over at the Bakhivka Yakhine region, there is a lot of fighting over at Bakhivka. The fighting here seems to be quite fierce. There's fighting reported on the 30th of June. They said according to the pro-Russian source Ryba. And then on the 1st of July, it was reported by Deep State UA. They said that the Ukrainians are successful. They say themselves are successful. And then Ryba said that the Ukrainians managed to break through to the village of Bakhivka, but then the Russians actually counterattacked and pushed them back. And on the 2nd of July, again, the Russian forces managed to repel a Ukrainian attack. And then the Ukrainians tried to attack with 30 soldiers with the support of 4 tanks and BMPs. And then within the first minute, 2 of the tanks and IFVs has been destroyed. And as a result, the Ukrainian forces give up the attack. So the attack towards Bakhivka is still, by the Ukrainians, are still ongoing very fiercely. And on the 1st of July, the Russian Defense Ministry reported that there is a attack towards near Yakhine and Kudyumivka, which is actually here. So, and then they got thwarted by artillery. So there's a lot of version of stories depending on who you want to believe, the Russian Defense Ministry or Ryba. I would say that the Russian Defense Ministry's story, just take it for reference, because they are the Russian Defense Ministry. So, and geolocation of Russian forces at this position, according to Deep State UA, this position, as a result, the Ukrainian salient, which previously was drawn in this way, I've actually pushed it back as a result of this geolocation. And the Ukrainian Defense Ministry is very weird. They keep saying that the Russians are attacking at Bodanivka on the 30th of June, 1st of July, 2nd of July. And no one else is talking about this. No one is talking about fighting at Bodanivka. The Russians are attacking in this direction. No one says so. So I'm not sure what is the situation over here. At Dubovo-Vasilivka on the 30th of June, Ryba reported that there is fighting over at this region here with the Ukrainians attacking. And there is also fighting reported at Orikovo-Vasilivka, according to SITREP maps. SITREP maps continue to say that the Ukrainians are making progress over this area here, but the mapping continues to be within where we are already mapped. There's no change in our mapping. So it's kind of awkward because he keeps saying that the Ukrainians are making progress, but there's nothing for me to map because I already mapped that place as Ukrainian for a very, very long time. Then the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that there's fighting near Minkivka. They say that the Russians are attacking near Minkivka, which is also awkward. So a lot of awkwardness across all the different sources. Very unusual. So the Ukrainians are still attacking. It seems like the focus now is Bakhivka and Klishchiivka. This is the main one, and probably Kudyumivka in this area here. This is the main focus of the Ukrainian forces. Yeah, and moving to the Siversk Front. At the Siversk Front, there is fighting reported at Rozalivka on the 30th of June, according to Ryba. And this attack is only happened on 30th of June, and since then, the Ukrainians have seems to have given up the fighting over this area here. So this outer northern flank, outer pincer, seems to have failed again, as the Ukrainian forces cannot break the Russian lines south of Siversk Front. Over at the other side of the Siversk Front, at Bilohorivka, the Ukrainians are on the counter. on the 30th of June and on the 1st of July, the Russian Defense Ministry reported that the Ukrainians are actually doing the attack. There is geolocation of Russian forces according to Surya maps at the filtration plant, which is actually here. So, which actually confirms the positions of the Russian forces and that the mapping that we put that the Russians have captured the filtration plant. So, so this allows us to push back the Ukrainian front lines, which previously was actually which was there was a salient of sort. So now it's removed. And that's all from the Siversk Front. Moving into the Kreminna Front. At the Kreminna Front, there was some reporting of fighting within the Zaporizhzhia Forestry on the 30th of June. They say that the Russians are continuing their offensive within the forest. And then on the 3rd of July, which is today, the center group of forces reported that they managed to repel a Ukrainian offensive over within the Siversk Forestry. So yeah, and then at Kuzmine, there is fighting reported on the 30th of June, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, and 2nd of July. At south of Dibrova, there is fighting reported on the 30th of June, all the way to the 1st to the 2nd. The fighting is a bit unusual. The Russian Defense Ministry said that the Ukrainians are attacking on the 30th and on the 2nd. Well, then they also say that they destroyed Ukrainian units. And then the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that the Russians are attacking on the 1st and the 2nd. So basically, you just know that there's fighting over this area here, there's fighting over this area here, and this area here. So a lot of fighting around all this curly hair. And then there is a fighting reported at Toske. This is the same one as the one just now mentioned, where they so-called annihilated some Ukrainian units. However, the Ukrainians launched an offensive over at Toske. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, that the 63rd and the 42nd Mechanized Brigade attacked the Russian positions. Doesn't look like a very huge attack, but it's an attack nevertheless. On the 2nd of July, same thing happened. The center group of forces reported that they defended against Ukrainian units that is pushing out of Toske towards the Russian position. This fighting also is reported at Yampolivka on the 2nd of July. In the part of the same offensive by the Ukrainian operations. There is also fighting reported near Terny on the 30th of June, which is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. All these attacks by the Russians is because of the way how they write. They may not be actually a Russian offensive because they only say that Ukrainian units is annihilated. But annihilated can also mean artillery strike. So yeah, that's why I did mention earlier in the report. I say that the way how they use the terminology is a bit weird. And over at Nevsky, there is fighting reported at Nevsky, same thing, the same report. And then the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 1st of July said that the Russians are attacking Nevsky. And then this report continues on the 2nd of July. But the Russian Defense Ministry reported that it is the Ukrainians that is attacking and they repelled the Ukrainian attack. So yeah, again, both sides continue to point fingers at each other, saying that the other units the enemy is actually doing the attacking. So that's all from the Kreminna Front, which is here. If you zoom out further, which is here. Over at the Svatove Front, there is the fighting flare up again in this region here. There's some Ukrainian probing over at Stemakivka, over here, on the 2nd of July. Over at Novosibirsk, it's very interesting. The Russian Defense Ministry attacked. So they defended against Ukrainian attack over at Novosibirsk on the 30th of June, 1st of July, and 2nd of July. They say that the Ukrainians are attacking, especially on the 2nd of July. It's a bit more detailed. They say that the Ukrainians are attacking. However, Ryba reported that the Russians are attacking over at Novosibirsk. They said that they took advantage of the Ukrainians doing a transfer of forces. They are doing rotation and then they attack and storm Novosibirsk. Then Deep State UA say that and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say that the Russians attacked on the 30th of June. So this one is happened on the 2nd of July. So yeah, it's very bad, which means everything failed. In this war, everyone attack, everybody fails. No one wins. Everybody is a failure. So yeah, failure. So and over at the Kupiansk Front, there is only a single report of some probing over at Veshalna on the 30th of June by the reported by the Russian Defense Ministry, and that's all from there. Over the Kharkiv region, we have missile strike reported at Chuhuiv and also at Balaklia. Both of these missile strike by the Russian side hit railway station, which is why I'm reporting. This is where the Ukrainians unload their weapons on hardwares over at this region here, which then the Ukrainians will then send to the front lines. The interesting thing is that Chuhuiv is more of Ukrainian control for some time, but Balaklia used to be under Russian control. So you see, after the Ukrainians captured Balaklia, they start to use the railway station, the railway track to deliver their reinforcements. So just this is something interesting to note. And that's all for the summary for the day of 492 to 494 for the 30th to 2nd of July. And yeah, so very lengthy report because I didn't report for 3 days, and I hate it when I miss days because my job become much more harder and difficult. Anyway, do press the subscribe button, please press the like button, and I'll see you in the next update.